No,
over on the topic?
you actually covered it pretty well. I was just gonna really encourage people to try and chime in for the open house, and just really show up for that, and get some information on the visioning process, and let your voices be heard as well. So yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, thanks. And you can, if you go to the greaterparkhill.org Park Hill Golf Course resource page, Shanta gave us a nice synopsis of the first steering committee meeting. So you can go there to read a summary of what happened at that first steering committee meeting.
And you can also view the meeting as well via
Yes.
the YouTube link. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we included the link to they're recording all the meetings, so we'll be sure to share the links there as well. Yeah, quick for me today. Greaterparkhill.org is a great resource for you all, or you can drop by, visit us on Fairfax Street. If you want to bring a donation, drop anything off, chat with us a little bit. Although we're not letting anybody in the office right now, we can chat with you at the door though. Please follow our Facebook page. We post additional updates there. And if you're not already on our email list, I would suggest signing up. You can find that information on our website. We only bother you once monthly, with our general communication, and it does include any kind of liquor license, zoning requests, public hearings, public meetings, anything like that that we get notified of. We pass that along to you. During this meeting, we share sort of the big important things, but there's a lot that's going on. So if you want to be in the know, please sign up for our email list. And I think that's all I've got. So I'll turn it back over. Tracy, you look like you're talking maybe, but you're muted.
Yes, I am. Sorry. Officer, thanks, Lana.
Sure.
I see you on the call, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself and bring the community up to date on what's going on.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Officer Heidi Lewis. I am the Community Resource Officer for DPD District 2. As always, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to chat with everyone. So for stats and trends, what we're seeing from January to February, we are down in total crime, 41.6% in precinct 221 and 37.6% in 222. We're down in all property crimes, void of burglaries. We had 26 burglaries in February, residential burglaries, I should clarify. If you are worried about your home or you just want to be proactive, please shoot me an email. I'll leave my email in the chat. And I'm happy to do a crime prevention through environmental design evaluation at zero cost to any resident within District 2 that would just like safety tips and tricks on how to make their home safer. As far as events, we have decided as a team to do 2 community service events per quarter. So for this quarter, as Lana said, we're doing the sock drive. We're accepting donations up until March 15th at the station for new youth socks. And then we have partnered with the foundation and DPS, and we'll be delivering those socks to schools within District 2 on March 16th. The second event that we're doing quarterly is going to be Faith in Blue. That's where the officers of District 2 partner with a church, and we go out and fellowship and spend time together and just build relationships. So this quarter, our Faith in Blue event is at Our Lady of Grace. That is in Swansea. However, it's open to everyone. And for the next quarter, for quarter 2, we are looking to do a Faith in Blue event, hopefully in Park Hill. So if anyone is a part of a church or they would like to partner with DPD on that, please let me know. We would love to do that. We're also doing a mobile food drive at Our Lady of Grace. That's going to be April 6th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Again, that is in Swansea, but it is open to anyone. As COVID starts to hopefully, fingers crossed, phase out, we're trying to reintroduce coffee with the commander. I know this is really popular back when we were doing it. So at our next meeting, I'll start announcing if we have dates and times and locations for that. Just real quickly, Lana, you had mentioned that you needed canned fruit for your pantry, and I can provide that for you guys. So I will get with you via email or phone call and come drop that off. Aside from that, I'm going to open it up if anyone has any questions.
So Officer, thank you for your generosity with the camphor. We greatly appreciate it. And I just want to do a shout out to the community who's on this call tonight. Please, please, please contribute to this sock drive for our district. So I don't have any questions tonight, other than I'm sure I'm going to be contacting you about making our home safer over in this area. So I'll shoot you an email.
Great, thank you.
Are there other questions? You want to unmute yourself? Yep.
I had just a really quick question. And this is kind of random, and I don't know if you know anything about it, but there were a bunch of helicopters out last night. Do you know anything about that?
So DPD only has one helicopter. It's Air One. So if there were a bunch of them, they were most likely media helicopters.
Oh.
And I can look into it and see if there was something. What was the general location where you were seeing them?
Like 40th and Steelish.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 40th and Steel, I'll look into that for you. And then if you just shoot me an email, I'll leave my email in the chat. I can let you know what I find out.
Okay, cool. I was just curious because it was pretty, and it went on for a long time. So I was like, what is going on out there?
Yeah, no,
So,
I'm curious too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Officer Lewis?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat or any raised hands at this time, Tracy.
Okay, well then we'll move on. Is Tim Hoffman here from the Denver District Attorney's Office for an update?
I am. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you guys for squeezing me in. I know how hectic and busy these meetings can get, so I appreciate you guys taking some time. My name is Tim Hoffman. I'm a prosecutor with the Denver District Attorney's Office. My boss, Beth McCann, was recently reelected to her second term. One of the things that she has tried to do since first being elected in 2016 is have prosecutors come to community events like this and community meetings like this to tell you guys a little bit about our office. Hopefully most of you guys are not particularly familiar with the District Attorney's Office. So talk to you guys a little bit about our office, some of the innovative new programs that we are doing as an office, and also to answer any questions and concerns you guys have. The first thing that I do after I get off of these calls is to send an email to Beth McCann and say, this is what the people here wanted to know about. Here are their comments and concerns. So it is very much meant to be a back and forth, but I also appreciate that there's time constraints, so I won't take up too much of your time. The District Attorney's Office has over 80 prosecutors. We handle both misdemeanor and felony criminal cases. In a given year, we're likely to see around 12,000 misdemeanor cases. Those range from driving without a license to driving under the influence to domestic violence assault to some low-level sex assault cases. We're also going to see about 8,000 felony cases, and those are the more serious burglaries, aggravated motor vehicle thefts, up to and including sex assaults and homicides. So our office runs the gamut of prosecuting all of those cases. We work hand in hand with Denver Police Department and a bunch of other agencies to prosecute those cases. It would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that this last year, with the focus on criminal justice reform and some of the protest movements that we saw over the summer that have continued, has shown probably a much needed light on the role of prosecutors in the criminal justice system. And the need to reform some of the practices. We are, like everybody else, not immune to making mistakes and overreach and everything else like that. Beth McCann, since she got elected, and it's certainly picked up steam in the past few years, has implemented a number of different programs, diversion type programs, to try to break what is a very familiar cycle of someone entering the criminal justice system and seeing a spiral of maybe a short period of incarceration. They get out because they were incarcerated. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe they lost their home. There are all sorts of collateral consequences. And so then they go back to committing additional crimes. And so the goal is, number one, and most importantly, public safety. But part and parcel to that is making sure that we are prosecuting and incarcerating the people who present a real danger to the community, and then trying to find off-ramps for many of the other people who end up in the criminal justice system who maybe have addiction issues, maybe mental health issues, economic insecurity, housing insecurity, all of these other things where if they were more vested in the community and had more of a support structure, maybe we could deter them from committing the crimes in the first place. So I'm happy to, it's probably too short of a period to get in depth into those programs. I'm going to post in the chat my email address. You guys should always feel free to email me and I will answer whatever questions I can. And I'm also going to post a link to sign up for I think it's a monthly or maybe bi-monthly newsletter that the district attorney's office sends out. And that would also give you some updates, but those two things are, I'm happy to have some additional conversation with you guys because again, I know your time is tight. The only other thing I would note, in addition to the protests and the criminal justice reform movement over the last year, we've obviously, like everybody else, had to deal with COVID. And that's seen fluctuations and at times reduction in prison population, people getting released on cases that maybe they otherwise wouldn't. And that's something that, like everybody else, we're grappling with. The chief question is still and always will be public safety. And is this someone who we can release back into the community and feel confident that they aren't going to hurt themselves or other people? But of course, COVID has affected how our job happens. We haven't had jury trials. I'm sure some of you guys have not missed getting the jury summons over the last couple of months. I'm sorry to say that they're going to start picking back up in the next couple of months. And I can't do anything about that. I can't get you out of jury duty. But that's also been a big factor. And, you know, I think Officer Lewis talked about these specific crimes in your precincts and kind of did a very detailed dive of what's been going on lately. It's important also to acknowledge that there has been an increase in violent crime in the city, and you know the homicide rate is double what it was last year. Violent crime generally, assaults and shootings are on the rise. That's a huge and ongoing concern for my office, for Denver Police Department, for city leaders generally. There isn't a single cause. There's not going to be a silver bullet that solves it overnight, but that is something that we are absolutely tracking. So with that, I will stop talking. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything else, I'm happy to field them. But like I also said, you guys want to chat further with me or just want to get more information about my office, I will post that information in the chat.
Tim, you know, if you really need more time, we're happy to give you the whole night if you can waive all of our jury summons. So
that almost feels like a fair deal because I'm a lawyer who likes the sound of my own voice, and I'm sure you guys would love not going to those jury summons. So,
no, it's a good civic duty to do. But are there any questions for Tim? Please unmute yourself if you have one.
Mine isn't so much a question as Tim. I just got off. I'm actually heading in up, but DA McCann. She was down at the. She was testifying for 62, the SB 62, which is that new bill that's looking like. Have you looked at this? It's pretty interesting. She was in favor of it and saying it was good. She gave a really good testimony. Yeah. So I love what she's doing. She's great.
I'll be sure to pass that along. Was she testifying in person or was it
No, she
remote?
was doing it remotely, and they couldn't get the video up, but her testimony was good. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
I'll be sure to pass that thumbs up along.
Yeah.
I may be opening up a way bigger conversation here, so we can just shut it down. But thinking about jury trials and the fact that they've been delayed for so long, that has the unfortunate result of really backlogging an already backlogged system. And I'm curious if there's been any conversation about how to address that. Is it possible to have a virtual trial with a jury? I realize there's so many complications with that, but I'm just wondering if that's on the DA's radar, or if that's, kind of in somebody else's responsibility to think more about.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it is probably a longer conversation than what we can do here, and I'm happy to have it. What I will say is that I think it has kind of sharpened our awareness about cases that need to go to trial is kind of the wrong term, but it is, I think, for all parties, defense attorneys, defendants, police officers, victims, prosecutors, put into more sharp relief. Can we resolve this case with our differences short of trial? And so I think you've seen more plea deals than maybe you otherwise would were there not this constraint. As far as virtual trials go, I can tell you we are doing virtual court right now, including motions hearings and other things like that. And I think that to some degree, that's probably here to stay in some capacity, at least so members of the public are able to watch proceedings. Jury trials specifically are a lot tougher because there are any number of rights that a criminal defendant has, and they're very, very important rights, including the ability to confront your accusers. And a big part of that is sitting in the same room as the person who is accusing you of doing X. And, it's important, I think, also and we all on Zoom right now know you miss things on Zoom, right? Like you miss the subtle cues and everything else. I might be wearing swim trunks right now and you guys would have no clue. I'm not, I'm wearing pants. But there are any number of things that are lost in translation when you are doing virtual things. And a jury trial, especially because oftentimes someone's liberty and freedom is at stake, that's probably something where you really can't do it another way but do it in person.
Yeah, Tim, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what you're doing on restorative justice.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So restorative justice, for those who aren't aware of the concept, is the basic idea that instead of simply punishing someone who has committed a crime by sending them to prison or doing other punitive actions with them, we're going to provide them an off-ramp, usually before a criminal case is even filed. And a big part of that is community buy-in. The biggest buy-in is going to be from the victim if there was a victim of a crime. So let's say that your car was stolen. There are certain types of situations where if you are comfortable with it, we will try to set up a meeting between you as the victim and the defendant, the person who stole your car, so that you can have a conversation and you can explain to that individual how this crime impacted you. Because I think for a lot of defendants, when they are committing these crimes, there's any number of issues going on, but they aren't thinking about the real human toll and the cost of either breaking into someone's house, stealing someone's car, other things like that. So restorative justice, at least in part, seeks to bring together the interested parties in a way that isn't about, we're going to send you to jail for X number of days and you're going to learn your lesson, because oftentimes that doesn't work, right? And so we're going to possibly arrange meetings between the victim and the defendant we're going to set up sometimes community boards where we have just interested members of the community who get together, have essentially a committee meeting and determine what type of restorative punishment makes sense given the facts of that specific case. So we've had already some success with it's still kind of a pilot program. I think we've had 30 some odd cases go through the restorative justice program. A lot of those are at some level or at some stage of that process. And I think there's been 14 cases that have ultimately successfully been settled, and then the charges have been dismissed, which is the outcome that we're looking for. So it's an exciting program. Obviously, there are certain types of cases where it's not going to be appropriate. And obviously, if a victim is not interested in participating, that's going to weigh heavily in terms of our decision to either pursue that or not. But it is just one of these new tools that we're trying out to provide these off ramps, as opposed to the more traditional model of, you've done a bad thing, we're going to send you to jail, you're going to get out, and we're probably going to be in the same situation that we found ourselves in 6 months earlier.
Thank you. That's helpful to hear that it's being used.
Yep.
Other questions for Tim? All right, Tim, thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate it and look forward to you guys continuing to update us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put that information in the chat. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. So next up, Lana, is Tim O'Brien here?
Yes, I believe the auditor is on the line, and then also we have Jeff Garcia, I believe, presenting as well.
Okay.
So guys, if you're there, you're up.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for a little time on your agenda. And I know I've probably met a few of you in the past at some of these RNO meetings, but again, hello. With me is Sarah Del Valle Ruiz, who is my communications specialist. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself? Yeah, hi there, Sarah. Hi. And Jeff Garcia. Jeff is the executive director of Denver Labor, which is a portion of my office that enforces wage ordinances, prevailing wage and minimum wage ordinances. And I'm Tim O'Brien, the Denver auditor. And Sarah, I'm going to ask if you could share your screen. I'm not sure how much time we have. I can go through this rapidly, or I can go through it slowly.
We've got about 10 minutes slated from right now.
Sure. All right. Okay, next slide then, Sarah. This is kind of the structure of the elected officials in Denver. I mean, the auditor, the mayor, clerk and recorder, city council. We're all elected independently of one another. We're all elected on the same cycle, meaning that the members of the council are not staggered terms. There is some movement right now, or at least talk about, the municipal elections are in May, and about changing that cycle to November. We wouldn't be competing with the general elections, like for the governor, or for the president, or anything like that, because we would be in the odd number year. But that still would have to be approved by the voters. Next slide, please. I think that where your tax dollars go, the auditor goes also. We do that by auditing departments and agencies. We do that by enforcing the wage ordinances that I talked about. Next slide, please. Right now, I mean, there's been some significant budget falls. That's no secret to anyone. City employees, including myself, are taking furlough days in last year and in this year. People are working remotely, and people in my office are working very well remotely. I think we all are suffering from the isolation and look forward to some form of getting back to work. I think it's a little ways in the distance. I think, we need more supply of the vaccine, et cetera, but we will be back in the office at some point in time. Next slide. How has the city, dealt with the revenue shortfalls? Certainly, we froze hiring last May, the furloughs that I mentioned, and probably most importantly, Denver had significant reserves. And if I made a presentation a year ago, I would have told you that the reserves are significant. And they have proven valuable in this pandemic. I mean, without them, there would have been not just furloughs, but there could have been layoffs, there could have been reductions in services, and things like that, things that we really don't want. Next slide, please. Oh, people often ask about marijuana sales tax. It's significant. I mean, $40 million. I don't have the 2020 numbers yet. But $40 million is definitely a lot of money. You can see how it's grown over the years. If what I read in the papers, it's going to grow even more for 2020 because people are at home, social distancing and enjoying marijuana. But $40 million is a lot of money. It's not gonna solve all the budget problems that a city the size of Denver has. And by way of comparison, I think $40 million would build a new fire station, but it won't equip it and keep it occupied with firefighters for a long time. Next slide, please. Sales tax. If you look at 2019, we had almost $900 million in sales tax in 2019. That number is going to be down about 11% in 2020. The city anticipated that it would be down even more, but about 11% is where it's going to be. I put in, part of the black portion of that bar is marijuana revenue, and you can see it's small, it's significant dollars, but it's small. And then, the green bar is what we get from eating and drinking establishments, and that is one part of our economy that has really taken a serious knock over the head. Next slide, please. I mentioned the general fund balance. It's up there around $400 million. It looks like we spent it down in 2018 and 2019. We really didn't. What we did was we took some of those general fund balance dollars as Denver sold bonds. I mean, there were some bonds that were approved in 2017 and again in 2018. You make the bond indenture itself stronger by adding reserves to the bond. Denver has a AAA rated bond rating, and when investors look at things like reserves, they are very sure that they're going to get paid their money back. What that does result in is a lower interest borrowing rate for Denver. The 2017 bonds that we approved was close to $1 billion. It was 937 million, I think, something like that. But that includes the interest. So if we have less interest expense, there's more dollars available, for the infrastructure needs that those bonds were for. Next slide, please. Denver International Airport, a thriving operation until the pandemic hit. And these numbers will all look quite a bit different when we have the 2020 numbers. Next slide. The audit staff, I mean, we have 40 some people. We have a number of certified public accountants, certified fraud examiners, information system auditors, all important qualifications, certifications to do the kind of work that we need to do to keep your government transparent. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass through audit impacts, well, maybe with one exception. I mean, sidewalks, we looked at the sidewalk program that Denver has. If you don't know, the sidewalk is really your responsibility if you're a homeowner or a business owner. And Denver has programs to help pay to improve those sidewalks. They don't do a very good job of inspecting to see that there is a need for sidewalk improvement. Some of the repairs that have been done to sidewalks aren't compliant with the Americans for Disabilities Act. That was a surprising fact to me because that ADA Act has been around for probably 30 plus years. Next slide. So we do all sorts of audits. We are not a one-trick kind of operation. We do financial audits, what we call performance audits, to see that the taxpayer is getting, what the program was designed to do. Information technology and cybersecurity are a very important part of what we do. Contract compliance. If Denver enters into a contract, to construct something, we want to make sure that the contractor delivers. Data analytics and continuous auditing. The data analytics are very important. If you think of the sidewalks, I know in Park Hill, your sidewalks aren't as in the same kind of shape as some of the sidewalks in Denver, because I've walked these neighborhoods as a candidate and, as auditor looking before we conducted the sidewalk program. But I just wonder if we had data that was retained from back when the Park Hill neighborhood, was first built. Could that have been information that served us in building, like the East Southmore Park neighborhood, which actually has very good sidewalks. That neighborhood was built in the mid-70s. Good drainage, things like that. You must know that drainage is important, because when you get rain like we're having right now, I mean, if the drainage is poor in your part of the neighborhood, you could end up with water in the basement. It could be bad drainage. It could be poor soil also. Next slide. All right, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I hope you have at least 5 minutes.
I gotcha. Thank you so much, Tim, and thanks for being quick and giving me a little bit of time. Thanks for everybody for coming out and inviting us, for sure. We come to a lot of these organizations. I'll bet Tim's been to more than 250 such meetings, and to have more than 40 people come out is amazing. I really commend you on your commitment to your neighborhood. Denver labor is kind of an outgrowth of what's happened in Denver with regard to protecting employers and employees. When we first started 5 years ago, we enforced 2 laws, and now we're enforcing 5. The most you've heard about probably recently is minimum wage, but we've been enforcing prevailing wage and a living wage for quite some time. And we've taken on the Federal Davis-Bacon Act as well, and contractor minimum wage during Tim's tenure. The goal of such programs, can you move forward, Sarah? The goal of the programs really isn't to just protect employees, although I think it's an easy way to look at it, but really it's to protect the entire community. When employers are asked to do the right thing and to comply with the laws, then it really does make the city as a purchaser able to buy the best possible product. And it really permits us to provide a city that people want to be in and businesses can flourish in. When these type of laws are enforced correctly, it really does permit employers to have the best possible workforce, employees to be protected, and the city to get the wage or to get the services it needs. We understand that COVID's happening right now. It's impossible not to interpret that into everything that the city is doing. And we've been amazingly flexible and amazingly adaptive. We want to keep every employer employing as many people as possible, but at the same time, making sure that employees are protected. So one example is that maybe there's an employee who's having a cash flow issue right now, and they're not able to make restitution, or they haven't been able to make a payroll. We've worked with them and their employees to come up with payment plans or ways to make sure that those employees still get the benefits that they've earned, but also to keep businesses open. So we're trying our very best to make sure that the entire community is served. Can we move forward one? So minimum wage is a big conversation right now. I know we're hearing about the federal level, but Denver is a little bit ahead of the curve on that. In 2020, the minimum wage took effect. It's a local minimum wage, which is a little bit different. Up until 2019, the state set the minimum wage. In 2020, we were able to set our own wage, and we have been moving that wage forward fairly progressively. It's not something that myself or Auditor O'Brien set. It's actually something that the City Council sets based on a state law. And in 2020, it was $12.85. This year, it's $14.77. And will be over $15 next year. So we will be ahead of that federal kind of plan. There are some exceptions. There's definitely exceptions for food and beverage workers, for youth programs, for people who are volunteering or providing service to organizations such as this. Why don't we move forward? We also do Davis Bacon and prevailing wage. The city is the largest purchaser of contracting and construction in the area. We have enormous projects going on right now. I think we have several $1 billion in projects with the convention center, with the new stock show, with expansion of the airport, which puts us in an advantageous position when it comes to hiring, but also make sure that we're not having a negative effect on the labor market. And so we've been enforcing this law for a little over 60 years. And what we do is make sure that if you are a construction worker, work in the area, and you work for Denver, that you're getting paid the most common wage for that type of work. And we've seen an enormous amount of recoveries for individuals who haven't been paid correctly. It is unfortunately an area where there can be some wage theft, or there can be some unscrupulous kind of management by employers. I think if you look closely at that picture on top, that's from about 2 years ago. We were able to hand a check to somebody for almost $70,000. And that was really a life-changing situation for that individual. He hadn't been paid correctly for almost 3 years, and he'd been driving a bus at the airport, and he was getting about half his wages. So we're making sure that people are getting paid the correct wage. One of the things, and one of the reasons why I like to come out to organizations like this, is it's kind of an ask. We have a staff of 12, and we do an amazing work with our 12 investigators and analysts. But if anyone ever has a situation where they feel themselves or someone they know isn't being paid correctly, or just has questions about being paid correctly in Denver, please reach out to us. This organization and all the organizations that we talk to are far more active in the community than we ever can be. So please reach out to denverauditor.org, or there's if you go to our website, you'll find complaint forms or tools or frequently asked questions, and it really will provide for a better community. And if you think that you might not being paid correctly, give me a call and we'll work through it with you and make sure that everyone is taken care of. Can you move forward one more, Sarah? So this is my favorite slide I think I've ever seen on any slide deck. Auditor O'Brien came in 2015, and he really prioritized protecting the city through wage laws. And prevailing wage was the first one that we worked on, but it's really shown that it can have a positive effect. So those numbers that you see in green those aren't aggregate year over year. That's each individual year, how much money we're recovering for employees that are not paid correctly. One, that's a huge gain for employees, right? Because those are people who worked for the money and didn't get paid. But the second part of it is those are tax dollars. Those are tax dollars that were meant to be paid for labor costs, and they weren't paid for labor costs. Instead, they were either misallocated by error, or they were considered a profit when it should have been considered a profit by a company. And protecting tax dollars is amazingly important and a big part of what our office does. And it's nice to look at these numbers, not only as a person who works for the office, but as a resident of Denver, and say, wow, we were able to save $3 million of tax dollars. So Sarah, I think one more. Oh, I'm going to kick it back to Tim, but thanks everyone for your time, and thanks for the chance to speak.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So I've made a number of changes. Certainly the wage ordinances and the enforcement of it is a big one. We use local expertise in the community outreach. That's what we're doing right now. And as Jeff said, I think I'm probably getting close to 300 of these kind of organizational meetings, which we're delighted to do. I think it's important to tell the story of what's going on in your government and how we're trying to help improvement. I think I'll skip on to the next slide, which we have a newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, I would encourage you to at least try it. Obviously, if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. Sarah will probably put in the chat box the where you can go to get the sign up for the newsletter. We're on all the obvious social media. We publish an annual report, annual audit plans, and we review every contract that goes through the city and county of Denver. By the time they hit our office, we have reviewed them within 24 hours. Next slide, please. And I might have gone over a couple minutes, but I'll thank you again for the time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
If you have questions, just go ahead and unmute yourself. This is your opportunity to talk to your auditor directly. So greatly appreciate you being here, Tim.
I know it's late, and if you invite us back, next year, we'll have better numbers for 2020, and you'll be able to see numerically and graphically, what happened in the city and county of Denver due to the COVID virus. So if there aren't any questions, I'll, ask all of you to stay safe and wear a mask and wash your hands, and let's make sure that we're all together this time next year.
Great messaging. Tim, thank you.
In the chat, everyone, there's a bunch of links there, just in case you think of any questions. You can shoot them over to the auditor's office. There's links for the newsletter, for the Facebook page, and et cetera, et cetera. So be sure to check that out.
Great. All right, if there's no questions, we'll move on to the next thing. Is Riley here?
Right here.
Oh, Riley, hello from our city
Hi,
planning office. Nice to see you. You're here to talk about the Kearney Area Bikeway project.
Yes.
Great,
And
you've got the floor.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Thanks everyone for letting me come speak to you tonight. My name is Riley Lemie, and I'm with the Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, also known as DOTI. So I'm here to introduce to you tonight a new project, and I'll also share with you how your community input will be informing what the design of this project looks like. And again, what I'm here to talk about is called the Kearney Street Neighborhood Bikeway. So I'll start by talking about what a neighborhood bikeway is, because I know that's a term sometimes that confuses people. So what it is it's a series of safety improvements that are primarily focused at intersections that are designed to prioritize people walking and biking by making it safer and less challenging to cross the street. And so some of the benefits of a neighborhood bikeway are to make everyone who's traveling on the street more visible, whether you're driving, walking, riding a bike, really helping you to be more visible at the intersection so that it's easier and safer to get across. So some of the benefits of a neighborhood bikeway as well are also that they're designed to provide improvements that discourage speeding, and as well as sort of keep local or really prioritize local traffic. And then an additional benefit is that they keep the existing parking, or they retain the existing parking on both sides of the street as it exists today. So a couple of examples of what forms neighborhood bikeway, and you'll notice in my picture that there isn't dedicated space. Really, these are designed so that you can be comfortable enough to share the street as someone riding a bike with other vehicles. And so some examples of what make a neighborhood bikeway, I'll start with the ones on my screen to the left and then I'll work to the right. But are things like pavement markings and signage. So these just help to raise the awareness that there are bikes traveling on the road, and then signage to help make it easier to navigate. So you'll notice in this picture up here, it's showing different destinations, so that way you'd be able to see where to more easily connect. But then there's other things that we can do. So if there's, through our data collection and through our community input, if we're hearing locations where it's where it's challenging to get across the street, whether it be a pedestrian or as a bicycle, there are improvements that we can put in that would help to mitigate that. Things such as traffic calming improvements or curb extensions that are designed to narrow the crossing as well as slow down turning vehicles. And then we can also do treatments that are designed to prioritize local traffic as well as make crossing safer. So again, you'll notice that it's not a dedicated space. It's really sort of a series of safety improvements. And though it's called a neighborhood bikeway, it's really more of a neighborhood shared street. It's again, really designed to benefit everyone who travels on the street, regardless of if you're someone that drives, if you ride a bike, or if you are a pedestrian. So just to show the extent of what we're talking about, this is actually a pretty long project. This was funded in the Elevate Denver Bond program by voters in 2017. So this is one of a whole slew of projects that was approved at that time. And it expands all the way from Smith Street to the north down to East Virginia on the south. One of the benefits of this project is that if you were to to ride the full extent, you would also be able to connect to the Cherry Creek Trail all the way down to the south. So again, these are projects that are really sort of designed to be comfortable for everyone that uses them. The next two slides just sort of just zoom in a little bit just to show again the number of different places that this is connecting. So it's providing, there's several schools along this route, and I'll looking to the south part of, or portion of it. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's also connecting the trail as well as Crestmore Park and then some of the other schools that are in the area as well. And I've already talked about some of the benefits, but again, really just trying to improve crossings, making it easier to get across some of those challenging places to cross the street. Think about some of the busier streets that you might see here, like East Montview or Colfax. I'm trying to make it so that when you're crossing from Kearney Street, that again, it is safer to be able to do so. One of the other benefits is that this is helping to create a north-south connection. That's something that we hear a lot about, that is an existing problem with our bike network, is it's easier to travel east-west than it is to travel north-south. So again, providing a nice north-south connection. And in terms of where we're at in the timeline, this is we're extremely early in the process. We're actually just beginning our public engagement process. We have a public meeting that will be on March 17th, which is kind of what I'm here to advertise, that will take place that night. What we'll be doing from there is we will be taking all the feedback that we hear from that meeting and coming up with a preliminary design to show. And then we'll be coming back to the public, I think on May 11th, with something to be able to share, and then we'll be collecting the feedback on that design. So something I want to mention real quick is that Dottie collects a lot of different information to understand what speeds and traffic volumes and safety issues look like on the street. But one of the most important data pieces that we can collect is the input that we get from you as the community. And so to be able to do that, we have a survey that will be going out. And so that asks questions such as, where are you concerned with speeding vehicles? Or where are there intersections that you have a hard time crossing? Or where do you feel like it's hard? Where do you feel like it's a struggle to be seen getting across the street or to see people as they're crossing the street? The answers to those kinds of questions that the community provides does help inform what the design looks like. And so that is feedback that we really value. And so there is a survey that is actually live. You can actually take it today and start sharing it with your community. And it is at this website right here that is on my screen. It's bit.ly/Denver Moves Backbones. I know it's a really strange URL name. It's because we are considering these the backbone of our network. So that's kind of the name convention for there. So again, just on my screen, you can see some of the examples of the questions are, what are your priorities on the street related to safety and mobility? That's one example of a question that we're going to ask. Another example is, where on the corridor would you like to see slower vehicle traffic? So, you know, if there's a place where you see vehicles that are far exceeding the speed limit, that's a place to be able to tell us. And then we'll also ask if there's other streets that are in the area that you have those same concerns. So again, just wanted to let you know that there is a meeting, that the survey is already open. It says on my screen that the survey is only open until March 18th. It'll actually be open for much longer than that, so it's a typo there. But the community meeting will be on March 17th, and we will be kind of basically the same presentation that I'm giving today. We will be sharing that with the community and describing how they can provide feedback and providing more information about what a neighborhood bikeway is. So that's all that I have. If there's any questions.
Really, on this topic, there's no questions? Oh,
Actually, I do have, Riley, I do have one question. This is Jackie Shumway. I've worked on the biking issue for, gosh, 40 years, 50 years. But I'm a kid. I started when I was 5. Anyway, what I was going to say is, calling it the Kearney Bikeway, we might want to call it the Kearney Cremaria, because it's that huge section that's Cremaria, from, what is it, 16th all the way up until it hits I want to say till it hits Crestmore. Isn't that right? Something like that. Yeah. Let's, I would suggest, only because it gives everybody the idea of looking for the K streets. And I would just suggest that would be helpful, I think, to people.
Absolutely. And I can make sure that we call it that. That was just me being lazy. And
Oh,
not
okay.
what we're happy to call it for, but
Yeah.
that is actually the name of the project.
No, and I am so glad you're doing this, because you are absolutely right on the north-south. My daughter was a director with the assistant director with the bike camp for years and years and years, and the issue consistently became the north-south routes. Yep, and with the kids, it was really disturbing. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
There is a question in the chat from Lisa. How do we participate in the meeting on March 17th?
Yes, so I will be, I can put some information in the chat of that has the Zoom link. And actually this website that is on the screen right now, the bit.ly/Denver Moves Backbones. On that website, if you click Kearney Street, and that should say Kearney Creameria, if you click on that, it will provide you with the Zoom link for the project. And I believe that it's from, I actually forget the time, but it's, I think either 5:30 or 6, but again, on the website, it will provide you the link, and I'll make sure to put that in the chat real quick as well.
Riley, thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Come anytime.
Okay.
So Juan, I think we just have kind of open forum for the next few minutes if anybody wants to bring anything up. Is that right?
Yep, that was the end of our formal presentations for the evening.
I would like to bring something up quickly. And I don't know, can I share my screen?
Yes, you can, Colette. Yep, go ahead.
So I'm just going to quickly introduce, a friend of mine has started what she likes to call a hyper local news site. It's called Bucket List Community Cafe. So I don't know if some of you may have heard of it or not, but I have a quick little presentation here. One second. Okay, now I got to find it because I've got so many things open here. Okay, this should be it. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so my friend, her name is Vicki Collins, and she has about 35 years in with NBC as a producer. And one of her biggest dreams was to start a smaller, sort of hyper local news source. And that's why it's called Bucket List Cafe, because that was on her bucket list to do that. So it's a journalism site primarily for North Denver. And she likes to think of it as a place to go and hang out and find out what's going on in your community. There's a daily Facebook feed and website to catch you up on news, issues, events, culture, food, and fun in your neighborhoods, and also want to hear your voices and stories too. Community journalism is important to us, so we've created a site where you can engage that is also interested in the work of your associations, alliance, small businesses, community issues, and events. And they're hoping to keep up the good work and to bring more original content as it moves forward. So it's Bucket List is also 100% donor supported. So they're not asking small businesses for money or advertising. There's not paywalls for subscriptions, and there are not membership dues. So if you go to either Facebook, and you can find Bucket List Community Cafe, or the website is just bucketlistcommunitycafe.com. So check it out. If you're interested and you like it, feel free to donate some money. A little goes a long way. It's basically just to help hire freelance journalists to help work on the content, but then also feel free to share stories with them and give her ideas. And again, hyper local, and it's kind of a cool little thing there. So I just have to unshare my screen. So thank you.
Colette, that's great. And I'm not sure if Kara DeGette's on, so if you wouldn't mind forwarding that to her as well.
I will. Yeah, it's slightly different because it's a smaller kind of like it's a more recent, like they do a daily update, and she's also kind of a content aggregator too. So she takes news stories from other places, but I'll definitely forward it to Kara as well.
Okay, great.
They do repost us a lot. So they aggregate our content into their stuff too.
She's familiar with Kara, that they know each other. So yeah, but I wanted to get her out since it's really a small project. I really wanted to get her out in front of all of the RNOs, and she's kind of shy and doesn't really like to do it. So I'm like, fine, I'll do it for him. My picture looks a lot better than me, so I'm probably right tonight. So I'm probably just going to go back to my picture for now.
You look fabulous, Colette. Don't
Oh
worry.
yeah, thanks. Right.
We all feel this way on Zoom. Hey, I see a hand raised, Lisa, and then Blair, I'll get to your question in the chat. So Lisa, if you want to unmute, I think you are. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I know you guys might have seen the great article that Ken wrote. Our board member, Ken Burdett, wrote about the Safe Routes to School project, and they presented last month. And we're going to be having that virtual meeting on April 8th. And so we're going to do about 350, probably about 320 homes in the area and businesses in the immediate area of the Safe Routes to School construction project. And I wanted to get those out somewhere around the week of March 15th. And so if there are people in particular that would love to come out and take maybe an hour or two, and Ken actually has a couple teens that are in need of some community service as well that I think are going to come out with us. But I want to set a date, maybe like in the later end part of the day or before it gets dark, maybe after 2 or 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So if anyone is interested in meeting with us and getting out, let me know and give me the best day of the week for you. I think Nam already did answer me. And so if anybody else wants to come along, I'll pick a date based on where we can get the most folks and get the information out. So that's all I wanted to mention. If you guys want to put it in the chat or get in touch with me.
Great, Lisa, thanks. And if you want to drop it in the chat, I think that'd be helpful too.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Blair, you had a question about what happened to the 303 Artway. Does anybody know?
I'm only asking because they got that Vision Zero grant, and we had also applied for that. And I'm just kind of trying to navigate all of the traffic, ped safety, bike safety stuff. And I know that it kind of goes along with this Kearney Kermaria project also. I don't know if anybody knows what happened.
I could maybe speak to that a little bit if you'd like.
Go ahead, Brian.
So the 303 project, as I think a lot of you probably know, is done through some partnerships both with the city and outside of the city. And there is kind of a series of different recommendations for mobility improvements as well as kind of the art piece of it as well. Speaking from the mobility improvements piece of it, we're kind of slowly trying to implement various pieces of it that we'll do through our various mechanisms. So for example, there was some bikeway recommendations that were recommended in the 303 Artway project that we're able to implement through our paving program. And then alongside of that, we're also studying some improvements for some crossing improvements that were recommended on Colorado Boulevard. And then also there's some kind of sidewalk improvements that are also being studied. So there's a lot that's sort of I should say in progress or being studied, and then is kind of moving forward at the same time. It's happening sort of in a piecemeal approach because there's a lot of different again, partially because it was something that was produced outside of the city, but also because there's a lot of different ways in which we deliver our work and different programs and funding streams from which we were able to accomplish that. So a lot of times that's how these plans and ideas ultimately get implemented, is through things like that.
So they're still doing it though, right? Is that right?
That's a good question. I don't actually know where, and I can ask Dana Hoffman, who is the community.
Oh yeah.
A lot more information than me. And I can follow up if you don't mind giving me your email address in the chat.
Sure.
I can that way just to understand where it's at.
There.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Are there other discussions, anything somebody wanted to bring up? If not, we'll go into board minutes and the letter that Lana got out to you all today from councilpersons Herndon and Sawyer.
I just had a really super quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to give a shout out to you, Tracy, and to Heather and to Nam for showing up and shoveling some snow. We had some crazy snow going on, and we had very cold temperatures, ice, heavy wet snow. I mean, it was some pretty brutal conditions we've had in the month of February. So just thanks to you for showing up. If there's anyone else here on the call too that also volunteered that I'm not seeing, thanks to you as well. It's a little thing, but it really makes just an enormous difference. So thanks. Really warms my heart to see those sidewalks get cleared.
Thanks, Amy. And we might have some by tomorrow morning again, right?
Honestly, I'm really hoping not. As much as I really appreciate everyone showing up and getting out there myself, it's pretty exhausting, and I'm pretty sure I hurt my back. So I'm really hoping that we won't have much to shovel tomorrow, but no doubt we're probably going to have some crazy snowstorm in May. So, stay tuned for more shoveling opportunities.
Thanks for putting it together, Amy. Other comments? If not, we will move into Bernadette. You did send out the minutes, is that correct?
They came in the monthly board email with the agenda and all that stuff, January and February.
I think that's our process. My apologies.
It's okay. It's a new process.
Well, it's a good process and I love it. So sorry, just not right on the tip of my tongue. So I think it's January and February, is that correct?
Correct.
So I'm hoping everybody read the January minutes. Were there any corrections or do we have a motion to approve? Speak up. I need somebody to give me a motion to move.
I motion to approve the January minutes.
Thanks, Lisa.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
And as a reminder, this is board members only voting here, folks.
Thanks, Lana.
Is that Tracy or Heather there next to you, Tracy?
Yes, it's just a hand, but it's her.
I didn't know she was here. Okay.
Hiding.
Tracy, Heather, Colette, Jim, Doug, Lisa, I've got you, Amy, Blair, Rick, Shane, Maria, Melissa, Kevin, Ken, Bernadette, stand by, looking at page 2, Sandy, Shanta, and Nam. So we have Lisa, Shane, Tracy, Heather, Colette, Jim, Doug, Amy, Blair, Rick, Shane, Maria, Melissa, Kevin, Ken, Bernadette, Sandy, Shane, Nam.
Good job.
So January is approved.
John, are you you're an aye for the January minutes as well?
Yes. Yes. Ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see your hand. I think that's everyone.
Okay.
Is in attendance, so there's hopefully is no abstentions or nays, but let's see.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Great, we'll move on to the February minutes. Any discussion before we have a motion?
I move to approve the February minutes.
Thanks, Amy. Is there a second?
A second.
Is that Maria?
That's Maria.
Thank you. All in favor?
I think I'm going to count the abstentions and the nays on this one, considering everybody voted in favor last time. So let me just do a quick peek. That looks like everyone. Except, oh, Lewis, I see. Okay, hang on just a second. Do we have 21 board members on? We do. Okay, I'm going to get back to you, Lewis. Okay, can we do abstentions and nays on February?
Sure. My apologies. So any nays to the February minutes? Sorry. Okay, any abstentions?
Sandy abstains.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, I missed someone somewhere. Oh, it's maybe I didn't have Heather on the list. Louis, did you vote on the January minutes? Is Louis there? Saw him.
I did see Louis earlier. Louis, if you can unmute yourself.
Louis, I didn't get your your vote on the January minutes.
Or
Or
enter chat if you're unable to mute yourself. Oh, Louis, there you are. I see he's unmuted.
he was having those audio issues last time as well.
Yeah, Louis, if you are a yes, abstention, or no to either February or March, can you just clarify in the chat? That would be great.
Thank you.
And then Lana sent out to everybody the letter from, are we able to move into that, Lana?
Yeah, I actually only sent it to the executive committee earlier today, but I think we could talk about it and address it. I can pull it up real quick.
That would be great.
Want me to kind of give you the background really quick? Although I don't know much about it.
Yeah, that would be great.
I got a call from Councilman Herndon today, apologizing for the last minute nature of this, but he and Councilwoman Sawyer are seeking a grant. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
They're seeking a justice assistance grant from the Department of Public Safety. And it is, well, I guess it's really the police department. I know they're working in partnership. I just learned about this afternoon, so I apologize. I don't know that much about it. Maybe, I think Amanda was on the call, and Amanda, if you're still here, maybe you know more about this.
You're there, so if you could unmute yourself. Great.
Hi.
Hi.
So I can provide a little bit more context about this. Councilwoman Sawyer's office has been really taking the lead in terms of working with DPD's grant writers on this. So this is an application to the state of Colorado. I have it up here, Department of Public Safety, the Division of Criminal Justice. So that's actually how it's addressed at the beginning of this. So we would be applying for some state funds to come into DPD, specifically to do some work on East Colfax. And the highlighted area would be Monaco to Yosemite. So that's to the border between Denver and Aurora. And there are really three main elements that this additional funding would provide. And Lana, I think Councilman Herndon sent that to you as well. So hopefully you were able to share it. I know the grant narrative is really long. So the sort of high level is those three big pieces would be additional street patrols. So that's officers on foot, on bicycles, and in vehicles that would be dedicated to that particular geographic area. And I believe it's 11th through 17th are the north-south boundaries of that target area. And the idea is it would be the same officers all the time. So they would be able to establish real rapport with the folks in that community. The second piece would be a full 12 months of community events. That would be education and CEPTED, like Heidi Lewis mentioned before, geared toward crime prevention and reduction. So that would be for residents, but also for the businesses in the corridor. And then the third piece is, I think we speak to it specifically in what Lana has up, is a victim advocate dedicated specifically to that area. And that's both on the prevention side and the post-event side. So they would be following up with anyone who was victimized by a crime in that area. Again, dedicated just to that space. So that's kind of the high level overview of it.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda.
My pleasure.
But the long and short of it is they're applying for this grant, and they are hoping for our support in this via this templated letter, which we can modify for ourselves, but, and they're hoping that we can return it to them tomorrow. That's the deadline that they needed for submittal.
Yeah,
So.
hey, Lon, I got a quick question for Amanda. So, Amanda, I'm assuming you've already talked to the East Colfax neighborhood group, and I'm making an assumption that they're in support of this right now.
They have been supported. I have not seen their letter. Councilwoman Sawyer's office has been coordinating with them. So I have not seen their version of this letter.
Okay.
And again, my apologies. I know it is last minute.
Okay. Board discussion. The floor is open. If anybody wants to unmute themselves, if you have a question, please ask.
I have a question that maybe Amanda can help answer too, since we haven't had a chance to look at this. With increased policing, would there also be some sensitivity to, some equity, diversity, and inclusion issues? I worry that with increased policing, there might be increased exacerbation of over-policing of certain populations. And I'm just wondering if that's acknowledged at all, or if that's a part of the application.
So the application does speak a little bit to that in terms of the fact that this area is really high need, and that a lot of the folks that we would really be concerned about in terms of equity issues are really the victims of these crimes. So that's where having the same officers in the neighborhood all the time is really beneficial, because they do have that community connection. They know the neighbors. More importantly, the neighbors know them. And so that relationship and that community policing model really is impactful. And that all of this would fall under the community policing model. And I can actually direct you to the part in the grant that speaks to that. So bear with me for just a second. I'm working on multiple screens like many of us are right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. You know what, I'll find it and I'll put it in the chat. That way you don't have to wait for me. But community policing is absolutely a key element of all of this.
Amanda, I had a quick question follow-up along the same lines as Amy's questions. I'm wondering, are there other groups besides the neighborhood organization that have participated in this? Just because I know that occasionally people are not necessarily comfortable coming to neighborhood organizations, and there are a lot of other community groups there. Have whoever's writing this, have they worked with them?
Yes, so there are a couple of other groups as well, including what we call ECCC, the East Colfax Community Collaborative, and then of course the BID and the Fax Partnership that you all are very familiar with. And then I know Councilwoman Sawyer's office has been working with small businesses in the area as well to get letters of support from them.
What about like more cultural organizations? I'm just concerned, it sounds more like policing and break-ins than maybe victim support. I mean, just because I'm not comfortable supporting something if I don't feel like it's more of a community thing, as opposed to just like, I don't know, private security. I just don't want to get,
I hear you. I know that Yoel and his organization would have been part of Councilwoman Sawyer's outreach as well. And I apologize for not having the information for their office. Are there specific cultural organizations that you have in mind?
Well, I'm trying to think of some of the names of the organizations that participated in the East Area Plan besides the RNO and the BID. Sorry, I have dogs. And I can't think, I'd have to look back into their documents, but just some of the other organizations that I think were more culturally based. I'm sorry, Mango House. Yeah, Nam wrote it. Yeah, there are a bunch of other organizations like that.
So I actually don't know about that. I'm absolutely happy to find out. Mango House is, if I remember correctly, and feel free to set me straight on this, are they in Aurora?
I think they're in East Colfax. I can Google or something, or put it in the chat.
Yeah, and I'm happy, like I said, I apologize, I don't have the information from Councilwoman Sawyer's outreach. But it's certainly not intended in any way, shape, or form to be private security. So that is absolutely a large part of the intention. Like I mentioned, the community policing piece is equity minded, absolutely. Because like I mentioned, those are the folks who tend to be the victims in these crimes. So that's really who we're out to increase the quality of life for.
And a question was asked about seeing the grant application. Do you have that readily available that you could just plug into the chat?
It's not online anywhere, but Lana, do you have it? That was part of the email. It was another attachment in the email.
Is that the same as the project narrative?
Yes. So
Okay.
State Ag 2021 project narrative.
Can you guys see, is there anything, am I screen sharing anything right now?
Yes, we're still seeing dear members of the board.
Oh, okay. Hang on a second. I've been looking at this project narrative thinking it was screen sharing, and apparently I'm sharing something else. I can bring it up here, but it is a 5-page document, so I can send it to everybody. So this is what it looks like, but again, it's 5 pages, so I will send it right now to the full board list.
Now, I just would like to remind everybody that they do need an answer from us tomorrow, recognizing it is short notice. And I realize it's already 8 o'clock tonight, and we're not going to get probably through 5 pages on this call. So if there's imperative questions that could be answered, or we could fish out of the application, please raise them now.
Tracy,
Yeah.
you know, I guess I would say that I'm generally inclined to support this sort of thing. Certainly, you know, more community style policing is better than the alternative. But I also share some of the concerns that were raised about, you know, I mean, I'd love a victim advocate's great. I'd love to see, even just thinking about the time I've spent, you know, up and down that corridor, I'd love to see, I know the city's piloting in some areas, the kind of, you know, non-policing focus, like, you know, there's like a new team that's supposed to be like sort of the intervention instead of sending the policing for you know, the homeless and those kind of concerns. So, I mean, certainly that sort of larger model is one that I'm in favor of. I think for me, the only hesitation is not knowing. I mean, I would be very interested. It sounds like they've been a part of the process, but I would just be very interested in knowing if they're actually sending their own letters of support, because again, I'm certainly inclined, if so, to support the other neighborhood organizations and community groups in their already ongoing efforts with the DPD in the city. So I guess it's sort of like a tentative, if we can get that specific question answered between now and then, I'm certainly inclined to support it.
Okay, and I'm certainly seeing just some folks wanting to have time to read this tonight. Amanda, what's your drop dead time that you would need something from us tomorrow?
I believe it's 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
I will say the meat of this really is in the last page and a half. So that's where they talk about methods and outcomes. And yes, I see the chat. Street Fraternity is Yoel's organization. So I can double check with Councilwoman Sawyer's office, but I'm sure that they would have chatted with them. They're on the south side of Colfax. But really the meat of this, everything else is just background. You don't need to know the statistics. You're all very familiar with East Colfax. The meat of this, the methods and the outcomes, are in that last page and a half. And then I think it was Nam, you mentioned the alternative options as well. This certainly would not preclude the city from expanding that program out here. This is just not a grant that would fund that. That's the only reason that that's not included. It does not in any way preclude DPD or the city from allocating additional funds to that kind of STAR program work in the area. It's just not what this grant is for. This is an opportunity to access funds to be able to drive additional resources to that area.
Okay, and Amanda, a comment was made, knowing what the other groups are saying as part of Councilperson Sawyer's outreach would be good to have as well. If there's a way to get us that info. So even what we could do is get this proposal out to the board right now, and then any of those type of letters that you have or support or that you know of, Amanda, if you could just get to me and Lana, we will get it out to the board, and board, since this is due for them at 11, I'm gonna ask for an email vote back to me at chair@greaterparkhill.org no later than 9. Is that fair? Does that give everybody enough time?
Yep.
Can I ask just another question that I'm not sure is addressed in this last paragraph and a half. I think it's outcome 2 probably is the most sort of one that I'm interested in, which is the increased patrolling. And I wonder, is there any kind of focus on what types of crime that there would be seeking prevention of, violent versus like drug crime, for example?
I don't have that level of detail, to be quite honest with you. I'm happy to ask that of Commander Bancroft and of Councilwoman Sawyer's office. But in general, DPD prioritizes violent crime over drug crime. If the two things are happening at once and we have a choice about which one we're going to send an officer to, it's going to be someone that puts someone's life immediately in danger.
And Amanda,
Okay.
not supportive of additional resources here, but does it take away resources from anywhere else?
It does not. That is the whole point of pursuing this grant, is that we're able to add resources without pulling it from another area. So thank you for asking that.
And did you say that it was going to be like a walk and talk? They were going to have officers out of cars?
Yes, that's the intention that is included in the program description. So it's officers on foot and in bike, because that's really where you get that community engagement and actually start to develop those relationships with people outside of just a negative interaction.
Lana, I'm assuming based on Amy's question, you have already sent this out to everyone.
Yeah, I just, as I accidentally shared my entire email screen with the entire meeting because I didn't realize what I was doing. I just emailed it to everyone a few minutes ago. There's 2 attachments. One is the application or the project narrative. The other is the templated letter that they're requesting we complete and send back by late tomorrow morning. So,
and
yeah.
Amanda, I just have one more question. With increased visibility of a project like this, is there any data that shows it would push the crime out into other areas? And would we, be basically whack-a-moling, a problem by just moving it?
I don't have data on that. I can tell you, just based on going to 8 years worth of DPD Police District 2 meetings, is that does happen sometimes. Some folks are committed to doing what they're going to do and they're just going to find another place to do it. But again, hopefully the relationship building piece of this will allow us to, not just be pushing it 2 blocks south or 3 blocks north or that kind of thing.
Right. Amy, did you have another question? I think something popped up.
No, I was just saying, I mean, it sounds like I'm being really critical of this. I know that it's a grant for additional crime prevention, which is good. It's just that it's a very sensitive issue. So that's why I'm trying to be really thinking critically about it. And so I just mentioned in the chat too, that I agree with Lisa's point that knowing, and maybe that's more in the document too, that we haven't had a chance to read, but knowing more about what the East Colfax community has expressed in terms of what they want and need for crime prevention, and to see that aligns would be really, really helpful, because then I would feel a lot more comfortable supporting it.
But I can tell you that most of the people, my son lives on 16th and Trenton, And they had a shooting on 17th and you went to the other night. They had one on Syracuse the other night. So I think anything that, you know, brings more police into the neighborhood in a positive vein, like the walk and talk programs that they've had, you know, that's what we grew up with. You knew the cop on the street, and he would take you home to your parents if you were in trouble and stuff like that. But at least this gets them out. This gets them on their bikes. This gets them out of the car, basically. And we're not just, the only time you see them is when they're zooming to an incident, you know? And so this way, at least it's, like you say, it makes them a little more human. And I would venture to say that most of the neighbors in and around that area are, you know, probably just as tired as seeing the police roll through as they are hearing gunshots at night. So I think it's a positive move. And if it's a grant and they can get some of the money to help start the program, I think it can't hurt at all.
Yeah, I don't, not to you know, bias anyone before we've read it, but I'll just echo John's comment a little bit, because I live in that corridor. So I probably Heather and I and Tracy, I can tell you that the 10 years that I've lived a block and a half from Colfax, our main problem is there's just not enough police here.
Yep.
And, you know, I think to be able to do it in this format, granted that if we can find out like what we've asked about other community groups supporting it, I'm really leaning in support of it, because that's been a huge problem since I've lived here for 10 years.
And Colette, you're in the defined area that Amanda just spoke to, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So a couple of questions.
Colfax and 17th.
Okay.
I missed what the defined area was, is one thing. And I don't have an email from Lana. Did I miss something?
Check your spam.
Yeah, when it
Let me
came,
check my spam.
yeah, GPHC, Google.
Into the whole Google group.
Came about 7:54.
Maria, I'm gonna just forward it to you right now.
That would be appreciated.
Yeah, I already did.
Thank you.
Are you getting all the group emails, Maria? I think you are.
I should be.
Okay.
But I don't see anything from you, and nothing has popped up. So
I just sent one to you. I just forwarded
I'm just concerned because, okay, I got Amy's email. I'm concerned because I have plans to go skiing tomorrow, so I got to get to this tonight.
Did anybody else not receive the email, or if you're able to check right now, just in case we can get it to you forwarded individually? Maybe there's some spam filter issue or something.
And Amanda, if the board does support this, do you just need a brief letter, or do you need a sign on from GPHC?
There was a template included.
Okay, thanks, Lana.
It's in the email. So there's a couple spaces where we can like add some things customized, but they provided us with the template that they're seeking.
And absolutely feel free to adjust that.
Okay. Are there any other questions, concerns, comments? And just if anybody has a problem with the 9 a.m. Kind of request back to me tomorrow, please speak your piece now. And we'll take a vote over email, and I'll let everybody know what the results of those are. Okay, 9 a.m. tomorrow would be great. So chair and director at greaterparkhill.org would be fantastic. Or actually, Lana, you're off tomorrow, right? I can handle it.
No, I work Fridays. So yeah, if you want to include us both, that would be helpful. That way, if one of us is like caught up with something in the morning, we can both be keeping an eye on it so that we can get everything wrapped up by 11. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, great. All right, Amanda, we'll communicate with you as soon as we can in the morning.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thanks, Amanda. I know we put you on the spot. I know you didn't expect to present on that tonight.
No, to be quite honest, I actually did. So
okay.
I don't mind at all. I don't mind
Great.
at all.
I'm glad you were here.
Sorry I didn't have more answers from Sawyer's office, but I'm working on it as we speak.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, is there anything else? 6 minutes after 8. I'm sure you guys want to jump into reading that since we have an assignment tonight. My apologies. So Okay, I'll look forward to hearing from everybody in the morning, and I appreciate all your time as always. You're a great group, and it's always a pleasure working with you. So have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.